What's up guys, it's me, Agent What If, and I'm back again with another video. This is what if Deku was like Shinki from Boruto. If you guys watch Boruto, then let me know. I'd be interested in that in the comments, just curious about whether or not y'all like the show. But anyway, I just wanted to get some things out of the way real quick. Thank you guys for the support on the channel. We're at the time of this video 996 subscribers. So if this is your first time watching one of my videos, or if you've watched my videos but haven't subscribed, make sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a comment if you really want to, and leave a like if you really want to. Of course you don't have to, but it's free and you can always take it back later, like all of them good speedrunners from Minecraft do. So yes, without any further ado, let's get into it. We start off with Izuku being born. But different from canon, Izuku has two parents in his timeline. Izuku is born to one Inko Midoriya and Hisashi Midoriya. They're in love with their child from the moment they see them and are instantly unable to let go. We then time skip really quickly to when Izuku was around 4 years old. The boy had a pretty decent personality, and because of his stoicness and how calm and laid back he was, he didn't have a hard time fitting in. In fact, most people were drawn to him because of the fact that he had this air of maturity around him, even though he was their age. This caused him to have a lot of friends, even though he wasn't much of a talker or that outgoing. This had the good effect of making Bakugo on cool terms with him. Him and Bakugo were basically best friends because their personalities were so similar and their dreams were so similar. This put them on really good terms, and they were basically best friends, but they'd never admit that to anyone. And it all was pretty interesting when Izuku turned 4 on that exact day, and he went to the quirk doctor. After coming home from school, he was taken by both of his parents as they were sitting in the room waiting for the doctor to return with the results. When the doctor came back with the results, they were a little scared because the doctor was studying the paper really intensely and didn't even look at them. He sat down, coughing to get their attention, saying, I'm sorry for my depressing look. Nothing's wrong with your child. He's perfectly healthy, and he indeed does have a quirk, but his quirk is just extremely powerful, and it's the first of its kind. We've never seen a magnetic quirk. And immediately his parents perk up, saying, what? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Izuku's ability is to magnetize the iron in his blood, and it allows him to pretty much become a human electromagnetic field. Not only can he magnetize any object that's magnetic, he can completely control it, almost like telekinesis. It's unheard of. And immediately his parents start asking questions, but Izuku kind of tones them out, not really understanding what's going on, but he smiles at his mother, who smiles back at him. They proceed to go home, and Izuku is pretty okay with this and doesn't really care all too much. When Izuku turned the age of 5, it's been an entire year. He hasn't used his quirk all that much because of the fact that Izuku didn't really find the need to. He never really used it because, well, it would always cause problems if he did. This is where it's perfectly good to mention that Inko is a retired hero and Hisashi's a current hero. Inko was a hero around the time that her and Hisashi met up. She was around her mid-20s. I don't know how old she was when she had Izuku, but just fill the timeline in your head. You know, just forget. She was a hero. And when she met Hisashi, they were both heroes on patrol. They dated for a little while, and about a year later, they ended up, getting serious and got engaged, and eventually got married and had Izuku. His mother had telekinesis like him and was a pretty good hero, but she ended up retiring because she wanted to be there for her son, and didn't want to have to neglect him all the time because of the strenuous schedule of being a hero. Because of those facts, Hisashi was more inclined to be a hero because of the fact that, well, it's how they operated. And even if she couldn't do it, she wanted Izuku to have a good role model, and what better role model than a hero. Hisashi, however, is actually quite quirkless. He is a genius who graduated school at a very early age and was incredibly intelligent, even without a quirk that boosted his intelligence. Because of this, he ended up creating the Endosim armor, kind of Iron Man-esque, that allowed him to pretty much it's pretty much a symbiote, and it can do what he wants it to do, like form blades and even make his body stronger and tougher and all of that, making him more durable and giving him a lot of versatility, which gave him the ability to stand on par with quirk users and be very good at his job. But he wore a mask because he didn't want anyone to know that he was a quirkless individual, right? So, because they didn't really appreciate getting shown up by a quirkless individual. They met up on a patrol, and that's how they ended up getting together. Around this time, Izuku was just sitting around with his quirk, not really using it all that much. Hasashi tried to help Izuku in his training, but he couldn't really teach him all that much since Hasashi's more of a physical fighter and he doesn't really know how to handle Izuku's powers. They were outside thinking one day about how Izuku could implement his quirk since it had been long enough, and they wanted to teach him how to use it so that he didn't do it, accidentally and hurt somebody, because Izuku's quirk is actually really powerful. So they don't want him to hurt anyone, and since they have the knowledge to help him, they should. They were outside talking and discussing how he could use his powers as a hero, because Deku already wanted to be a hero. I mean, both of his parents were heroes, he has a good quirk, it just makes sense. Deku was in the process of being taught by his parents, but they didn't really know what to teach him, besides basic exercises and eating healthy and training. They didn't know how to help him with his quirk since, well, he can't really use his magnetic field around anything really, because he'd be throwing cars at people, and if that doesn't outright kill the villain, it'd definitely cost thousands of dollars in property damage and would really just mess up the place more than it would get the villain captured. So they opted not to do that. So they thought, okay, if Izuku can't just use his power like telekinesis, then he should use it more like control over a certain object, something like a weapon or something. But they couldn't really find anything that was specifically good enough for Izuku to care about, since he didn't really care because, well, no one wants to use a metal stick to attack people. It's not very cool, is it? Izuku was thinking to himself, and he told his parents that he needed something that was versatile, something that was easy to manipulate, and something that would help them out. They were in their backyard, which is kind of huge because around the time when Izuku was born, Hasashi had ended up making a company that was worth millions of dollars because of the fact that, well, he's a genius. So yeah, Hasashi began to think, saying, an excellent observation, Izuku, but what? You're limited to metallic, or not even metallic, magnetic substances, so what could you hold on? And he immediately ran away into the house at great speeds. His mother's sweat dropped at how eager and excitable he can be sometimes. Looking at her son, she smiled, saying, I'm sure your father will be back soon, Izuku. Hasashi ran out in his Endosim armor, holding something that looked like a ball, but when he released it from his Endosim's armor's grip, it fell and then fell apart. Izuku didn't know what it was, but he knew that it was broken. He asked his father why did he break it, and Hasashi puffed his chest out, almost looking like he had accomplished something, with a smug look on his face, saying, my son, how much you have yet to learn. This, my boy, is not something you can break. And Izuku asked him what it was, and Hasashi asked Izuku to figure it out on his own. Izuku then says, is it sand? Hasashi then said, no, my boy, unfortunately this isn't sand, but you can call it that if you really want to. But it's small pieces of iron, kind of like sand, but not really, sand. It can be affected by your magnetism, so you can use it. And it's very versatile because you can make the sand form in any way you want. Izuku began to process this information, thought about it, saying, yeah, that really is a good idea. Good job, Dad. And Hasashi returned to his smug, arrogant look. Izuku was about to manipulate it when his father grabbed his hand, saying, whoa, slow down. Your powers are an area of effect right now. You pull everything in a couple 100 feet to you and it'll probably crush you. Let's focus on some concentrated control. And over the next couple of years, Hisashi, with the help of Inko, would train Izuku on how to use his abilities properly, especially with the sand. Izuku was using it to a very proficient level. He began to kind of coat himself in it and wear it like a coat. Because of this, he was manipulating the sand, so of course it wouldn't be heavy on him. And I know it's not sand, but I'm calling it sand because it's just easier to say than metallic sand-like substance. So yes. Anyway, Izuku began manipulating it and wearing it like a coat because it was a good defense, because it's still iron. It's pieces of iron put together, so woven kind of together, so of course it's extraordinarily strong and provides a good defense. Otherwise, Izuku uses it kind of in any way he wants. He can even use it to form wings and do things like form spikes on his back to protect himself, or just straight up take a piece of it and turn it into a weapon to use, or just turn it into a cage to capture villains, or use it as a platform to step up somewhere, right? Izuku, the possibilities were pretty much endless with this, and that was why he enjoyed it so much. It's been 10 years since Izuku first began his training. We catch up with Izuku as he's currently walking to school. He's sighing at how much of a drag going to school every day is, and he begins to think of how exactly he's going to do anything else if school is this boring. He walks into the school gates and he makes his way to class. Immediately the girls start swarming over him and swooning about how Izuku was here. Izuku sat down ignoring them, sighing more heavily than he did before. That's when a familiar face, the face of Bakugo, turned around at him and started laughing, saying, that's what you get, but it is your fault after all, since you've mesmerized them with your beauty. Izuku shot him a very angry glare, and Bakugo said, whoa, don't get mad at me, it's your fault that they love you. Bakugo started to laugh at Izuku, and Izuku told him, oh, is that so? Well, it probably doesn't help that you're trying to make fun of me when you're in the exact same situation. Bakugo turned around with a very confused looks to see an entire group of girls behind him, and Bakugo sneered and turned away. Izuku said, oh, what's wrong? Don't want to laugh anymore? Bakugo said, shut up, idiot. That's when the teacher walked in and began to hand out papers saying, alright everyone, I want you guys to make sure you fill these papers out by the end of class. Then we skip to the end of class. At the end of class, everyone had already filled out their papers and he collected them. And he says, now before I read these, I wanted to make sure, did everyone get all of the ideas they wanted to have on here? Because I want this to be an accurate representation of what you want to do in your life. Everyone nodded, respectively, Izuku and Bakugo not really paying too much attention. When the man threw all of the papers up saying, who am I kidding? All of you guys want to be heroes anyway, there's no point in looking. And everyone immediately began to flash their powers in some excitement and joy. Izuku smirked, and so did Bakugo. But that's when the teacher picked up all of the papers extraordinarily quickly because he has a super speed quirk, so yeah. And he then says, after reading through all of these papers, I noticed that there's a couple of us who want to go to UA. One Bakugo and one Izuku, the dynamic duo. They really did hate being called this because they didn't like being associated with each other, but they were pretty good friends, so yeah, but they would never let anyone know that. Izuku got a little upset saying, this is such a drag. And all of the girls started to swoon, and Izuku said it again, and it was just an endless cycle until he stopped realizing that that was always going to happen when he said his line that he always says. Then that's when Bakugo stepped up saying, yes, I want to go to UA. The teacher said, really? You want to go to UA? You're certainly ambitious for being fresh out of high school. And yes, UA is a college if it isn't a college, and you know, I'm pretty sure it's not a college, but it doesn't affect the story too much. Just think of it as whatever, right? If it's like like the last 2 years. I don't really know what time it is, like, so just fill in the gap with your own mind. It really doesn't matter anyway. So yeah. Bakugo then stands up, putting his foot on his desk and saying, "Don't compare me to anyone else in this room. Everyone here would be lucky to be the sidekick of some D-lister whose name will never get known. I'm gonna be better than All Might. And that guy over there," pointing at Izuku, he says, "that's going to be my sidekick. He's the only one deserving of this position. All of you should try to aspire to be how he is." Izuku then got up saying, "Bakugo, I would never be your sidekick. If anyone was going to be anyone's sidekick, it'd be you." The two began to bicker as the teacher told them to settle down as they began to sit back in their seats. The teacher says, of course, you guys can say whatever you want, but I believe in you all. So, have a nice day." As the bell began to ring and everyone began to leave, Izuku was walking out when he noticed Bakugo walking towards him. Bakugo walked towards him and told him, he said, "Hey, idiot." Izuku turned around saying, "What do you want, Bakugo?" And Bakugo said, "So you're going to train, right?" And Izuku said, "Of course." And Bakugo says, "Do you want to train together?" And that's when Izuku said, "Probably tomorrow. I won't do it today. I'm tired." Bakugo said sure and walked off. Izuku was making his way home rather slowly and lazily to boot. He was pretty calm, just taking in all of the views and having a good old time watching the clouds. He has a personality kind of like Shikamaru if you watch Naruto, so yeah. Anyway, Izuku was on his way home and he opened the door when before he could even fully walk into the living room, he heard an explosion. The explosion was big and it surprised him, but luckily he used the sand to protect himself. He walked through his sand, it becoming as easy to walk through as water, and Izuku noticed that his father was sitting there, and he ran out to the front door, and Izuku says, "Dad, what was that? Did you blow something up?" And Hasashi then says, "Shh, you're being too loud, you'll wake." And then that's when they heard his mother walking down. She walked extraordinarily slowly, and they both sweat dropped from the amount of killing intent she was releasing. The scariest part was that she had a smile on her face, completely calm, looking as if she was the most loving person in the world. She grabbed his father, and she began to question why someone was making so much noise. And that's when she's noticed Izuku says, "Oh, Izuku." And Izuku says, "Hey, Mom." And she says, "What was that noise?" And that's when Hasashi pleads with Izuku with his eyes saying, "Please, son, don't tell her it was me. I'll be killed." Izuku then says, "Oh, it must have been me walking through the door." And she says, "Really?" And she let go of Hasashi as Hasashi breathed a sigh, walking over to his son, whispering in his ear, "Thank you." Izuku chuckled as he continued to walk. She then told them that, it was pretty late and she hadn't cooked dinner, that he should go take a shower, and once he was out, dinner would probably be ready, so yeah. Izuku went up, and 1 shower later, they were all downstairs at the dinner table, eating, talking about the day. Izuku was asked by his mother how his day was, and he pretty much just said it was normal, but that was his typical response. His father asked him why he had such a cagey response, and Izuku says that's just how he was. His father chuckled at this and then told him, "I guess so." "So, Izuku, how strong have you gotten since the last time we spoke?" His mother sighed, saying, knowing this would happen. Izuku then says, "I don't know, probably fairly strong." And his father says, "Why such a cagey answer? You could give me an exact one if you wanted to." Izuku says, "That's just how I am." His father chuckles, saying, "Fine, why don't we test your strength?" Izuku then got a little surprised at this, and his father pointed to outside in their backyard, which was pretty big, so they could spar there. Inko just accepted it, knowing that this was going to have to happen sooner or later, so she let it slide. Izuku got up saying fine, summoning his sand around him like a coat, and walking out of the door. Izuku was on the opposite side to his mother and father, as Sasaki walked forward. He activated his Endo Sim from its normal bracelet mode, covering his entire body. He was ready. Izuku was ready as well, and that's when his father dashed off towards him, breaking the ground underneath him and zooming forward. Izuku could barely react, using his sand to block, but his father was already behind him with another attack prepared. Izuku was not ready for this one, but barely used his sand to block. He jumped back trying to get distance while he was on the defensive from his father's onslaught. Izuku couldn't react. He wasn't fast enough. And that's when Izuku realized that he was going to get overpowered if he didn't do something quick. Izuku covered himself in his sand, and his father assumed that it was Izuku trying to cover himself in a ball of sand to protect himself, and he says, "Won't work, son. Running away won't fix the problem," as he threw a punch, and then something caught him. A hand that looked like it was a claw, and a muscular sand figure came out that was completely black with slitted eyes and looked like it had very, very sharp teeth. Izuku then says, "Why would I run away, Dad? Running away never works." Deja vu. He headbutts his father, sending him back a little bit as he tumbles back, because they have a pretty big backyard. It's fairly large, and he was now back a good 20 feet. His father recovers, only to see his son right in front of him throwing another punch. His father, however, takes this punch but was ready for it, throwing one of his own. Izuku blocks it, but gets punched in the side again. Hasashi's already behind him, getting ready to attack him in the back, but Izuku jumps up high, again dodging that attack. His father does the same, but they begin to exchange blows in the air for a little bit until Izuku falls to the ground. But he fell before Hasashi because of his added weight from the sand, which he uses to his advantage, dashing all forward, catching his father by surprise. The moment he reached the ground, Izuku punched him in the face with all of the momentum he had gained, sending his father flying again. The punch landed a significant bit more strong, more powerful than his father expected, as his suit told him how much damage it sustained. His father was completely shocked, considering that the suit was designed to take at least 5,000 tons of force and not break, because that's how it was supposed to. But he couldn't do anything. It was broken a little bit. He realized that he was going to have to get a little more serious with his son, so he did. He used full power and he dashed forward towards his son at blinding speeds. His son couldn't even perceive him, as he was already behind his son, and he punched him in the face, which knocked some of the sand off, sending Izuku to the ground. He tried to recover, but his father used this opportunity to close the distance and pin him and stop him winning the fight. Izuku gave up, not feeling like fighting anymore, and that's when his father extended a hand and got him off the ground, saying, "Improvements, you need a little bit more defense around the face area. I take it that's because you haven't been punched before, so you didn't protect it as much. You didn't expect to get hit that hard, did you? Secondly, your speed, while it's incredibly fast, you're not fast enough to deal with the top speedsters here, so you will need to get faster. And that's pretty much it. Your fighting technique's pretty good as well." Izuku didn't really respond, walking away, and his father asked him how his power developed, and Izuku looked curious, and then he thought about it and he says, "Oh, right." Izuku was remembering that he has sort of a second power. Because of the fact that Izuku has access to the electromagnetic spectrum, he can produce and emit electricity as well as control it, store it, and is immune to it. His father told him that he should combine his electricity with his sand form so that he can make it more powerful, shock his opponents, and just add more power to their form. Izuku decided that he'd take his father's advice and do this, but not right now. Izuku decided that he was done for the day and was going to do his training. But with that, I think we're going to end this episode. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you subscribe, because it's really important and it would mean a lot to me. So yeah. But without any further ado, peace.